Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it's going to be a fun one. We are going to try to answer Steve Hornady's challenge he made. What challenge was that? Well, a couple months ago, he was on the Eastman's Journal Hunting podcast, and he issued a challenge to any other cartridge out there to match the PRC cartridges. So I'm going to try to find other cartridges on the market in factory ammo that match the efficiency, the accuracy, and the downrange performance. Now, before we get into the PRC cartridges and their performances and trying to find other factory offering cartridges that could match it or exceed it, I just want to recommend that podcast that Steve Hornady was on. It was a really good podcast on the history of Hornady and how Hornady was able to keep up with demand during the pandemic while others couldn't. And it even has Steve Hornady pleading with people not to use match bullets for hunting. It's a really good podcast. Let's take a quick look at the PRC family. Starting on our left is the 6.5 PRC. In the middle is the brand new 7mm PRC. And to the right is the 300 PRC. They all have the same parent case, which is the 375 Ruger. And, well, same case, it's just different lengths and different neck sizes, obviously, to fit the diameter of the bullet. So the 6.5 PRC fits into a short action. The 7mm PRC is a standard or long action, and the 300 PRC is a magnum action. There's really a couple things that set the PRC cartridges apart from other or older cartridges. They all have fast twist rates, and they have tight tolerance chambers. So the potential and accuracy is quite good with these PRC cartridges. Now, in the podcast, Steve Hornady's challenge was a little bit vague, but what I'm getting at is that find other cartridges that shoot factory ammo that have the downrange ballistics, the somewhat light recoil, and efficiency. Those are my best guesses is what he meant, because right after he made the challenge, he talked about how the 300 Rum could easily beat a 300 PRC, but that no one's really going to want to shoot a 300 Rum because of how much it recoils. For those that are curious what a 300 Rum looks like next to a 300 PRC, here it is. It is a behemoth cartridge, and yes, it does outperform a 300 PRC. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This challenge that Steve Hornady laid out is actually a pretty tough one. These PRC cartridges are really good, especially at the price point they're at, and just the downrange performance is darn good. So it's going to be a little tough to find them. However, the easiest one to find that has similar efficiency, similar downrange performance is going to be the 6.5 cartridges because there's so many. So let's talk 6.5s that perform just like it or beat it. Okay, let's look at the baseline performance, what we're trying to match or exceed. For the 6.5 PRC, we're going to use Hornady's 143 grain ELDX at a velocity of 2960 feet per second, muzzle energy 2,782 foot-pounds. Then we are just going to do this comparison at 600 yards. There's 69 inches of drop when you zero it out at 100. The bullet's going 2,123 feet per second, and your energy is 1,431 foot-pounds. Long before the 6.5 PRC, the 6.5 Creedmoor was the original, the 6.5 284 Norma. What is the 6.5 284 Norma? Well, it's a neck-down 284 Winchester that became extremely popular with the long-range shooters, just because of the flat trajectory and the decent velocities you get. You can get factory ammo shooting a 140 grain VLD, a Berger VLD, at a muzzle velocity of 3,016 feet per second. Your muzzle energy is going to be 2,828 foot-pounds, so it's beating the 6.5 PRC just by a little bit. Then out to 600 yards, it's 2 inches less drop than a PRC, and the bullet's going just a little bit faster, 2,137 feet per second. However, the ELDX does have a little bit higher BC, so there's just a little advantage for the PRC with energy at 600. Is it really noticeable? I don't know if 11 foot-pounds is really noticeable. So there you go. The next cartridge I think that performs just as well or better is the 6.5 Weatherby RPM. This is shooting factory ammo with a 130 grain Swift Sirocco at a muzzle velocity of 3,150 feet per second. Muzzle energy 2,864 foot-pounds. Out to 600, its drop is 7 inches less, and it's going a little bit faster, 2,204 feet per second. However, that Swift Sirocco doesn't have as high BC, so the energy is a little bit below. Again, is there a huge difference? Not really. So there you go. Another alternate for the 6.5 PRC is a 6.5 Weatherby RPM. Let's get into the hardest challenge that I have found is matching 7mm PRC in its downrange ballistics while not going completely overboard and having a lot more recoil. This one is definitely the toughest one. So what we have here on my right is a 28 Nosler. I don't think this one can count. I would think Steve would say it just recoils too much and you're burning way too much powder. So goodbye 28 Nosler. Really, I think the one that comes closest to its performance with around the same recoil and burning around the same powder is the 7mm Remington Magnum. The problem is the 7 mag, you know, it doesn't have extremely high BC bullets that you can shoot from factory. You can hand load it, so if this was hand loading, this would be an easy solution. The 7 Rem mag is kind of close, and I'll show you in a sec on paper. So yeah, it's just, people will say it's belted and yada yada yada. The other one I want to talk about is the 280 Ackley Improved. Now, it's going to have a bit less power than the 7 PRC, but this is a lot more efficient. I just think it's a better all-around cartridge. Let's go through this real quick. 7 PRC with a 175 ELDX at 3,000 feet per second, muzzle energy of almost 3,500 foot-pounds at 600 yards when sighted in for 100, 65 inches of drop, bullets still going 2,227 feet per second. Your energy is extremely good at 1,928 foot-pounds. However, I think we need to realize that the PRC is not a light recoiling cartridge by any means. This is in an 8-pound setup, so it's on the lighter end for a rifle. You'd probably need to get a 6.5-pound rifle or a 7-pound rifle. You're getting 30 foot-pounds of recoil. The 7 Rem mag with Hornady ammo, 162 grain ELDX at 2,940 feet per second. 3,110 foot-pounds. It's a bit less, but there's only a 5-inch difference in drop at 600 yards. Bullets still going 2,113 feet per second. There is a 300 foot-pound advantage though for the PRC when this only has 1,600 foot-pounds. However, in an 8-pound rifle, this has quite a bit less recoil. And I will always tell people, please reload your 7 Rem mag. And if you do, you can match the PRC. Okay, 280 Ackley Improved. Using Hornady 162 grain ELDX ammo at 2850. Energy 2921 at the muzzle. 600 yards, 75 inches of drop, so 10 inches less than or 10 inches more than the PRC. The bullet's going 2,039 feet per second, and your energy almost 1,500 foot-pounds. Then let's look at the recoil. 22 foot-pounds of recoil, so around the same as a 30-06. So yeah, the PRC definitely beats these two in downrange performance. However, if we're looking at efficiency and recoil, these two win. It's just how much recoil do you want to deal with? Because, I mean, if we could get a 28 Nosler, it would definitely beat a PRC. Lastly, let's look at the 300 PRC and let's see what other cartridges that are just as efficient, that have around the same recoil, that give you the same downrange ballistics. Let's start with the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. It's going to struggle the most to catch up with the 300 PRC. However, if you want a 300 Magnum that has the least amount of recoil, this is kind of the best bang for your buck. and it's the most efficient. It comes really close to 300 Winchester Magnum performance. Speaking of 300 Winchester Magnum, we have the 300 Win Mag, which the 300 PRC has always been advertised just as a modern version of the 300 Win Mag. Lastly, we're going to go with the 300 Weatherby Magnum. Now, you might be thinking the 300 Weatherby is a little bit overbore. Well, the 300 PRC and the 300 Weatherby are extremely close in performance. So, no, I don't see it as something that's just way overbore or way more than a 300 PRC. Let's take a look at the numbers for the 300 PRC with a 212 ELDX, muzzle velocity of 2860, the energy 3,851 foot-pounds at 600 yards, 74 inches of drop, 2,083 feet per second at 600, and the energy 2,043 foot-pounds. Also, this is not a light recoiling cartridge in an 8-pound rifle. Now let's take a look at the 300 Win Mag. Now, I'll admit it was a little hard to find factory ammo with the high BC bullets. Federal used to make one with the 215 Burger, but that's been discontinued, so I had to go to Choice Ammunition. Now, this is really high quality ammo. It is hand-loaded factory ammo, you could say, and it's going 2,942 feet per second, 4,037 foot-pounds of recoil. Impressive performance out of the 300 Win Mag at 600 yards. 4 inches of less drop. The bullet's going 2108 feet per second and about almost 30 more foot-pounds of energy than a 300 PRC with the same amount of recoil. Wow, I almost forgot about the 30 Nosler. The 30 Nosler is shooting from factory a 210 grain AccuBond long range at 3,000 feet per second, muzzle energy of almost 4,200 foot-pounds. It also only drops 66.5 inches at 600. Bullets going 2,197 and the energy 2,252 foot-pounds. Now let's look at 300 Weatherby factory ammo with the 200 grain AccuBond at muzzle velocity of 3,075 feet per second, muzzle energy 4,200 foot-pounds. At 600 yards, you have 65 inches of drop, so 9 inches less than a 300 PRC. Bullets going 2168, and it has the most energy even with the least highest BC bullet at 2,088 foot-pounds. How about recoil? 42 foot-pounds of recoil in an 8-pound setup. So yeah, get a muzzle brake if you get a 300 Weatherby. Overall, yeah, it's not hard to find cartridges that perform similar to a 300 PRC. Now, you're probably wondering, why didn't I go out farther than 600 yards? You're being biased so that the 300 Win Mag and 300 Weatherby can still beat a PRC. That's not really the reason. 600, I think, well, look at the muzzle velocities. You're still going to have good bullet expansion. If we get out to, say, 700 yards, 800 yards, these bullets are not going to expand well. Even the ELDX. I've seen videos of the ELDX not expanding at all at 1,800 feet per second. So, should we be shooting at game farther than 600 yards? My personal opinion, no. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a fun little challenge. It certainly was hard in the 7mm category to find something. But, you know, you can't go wrong with these PRC cartridges. My only wish was that they had more offerings of different ammo. It's a good thing I'm a reloader.